Hello viewers, welcome to this lecture on plant groups. In this particular lecture, I shall be discussing some aspects of mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza is a fungal association between mycelial fungi and higher plant root. This particular lecture, I shall follow certain objectives, and these objectives are to understand the different types of mycorrhizae, to know their structure and function, and to know the functions of different types of mycorrhizal association and the benefit that actually is acquired by the green plant. So as I was telling that a plant may look very small when we look from the surface, but if we see the root inside, as it is seen here, that the root is deep seated and ramified in wide direction, and they are colonized with different types of mycelial fungi as vesicular, arbuscular mycorrhizae. And it really helps them to acquire a lot of nourishment from the soil, and if we test the soil, these areas will be deficient in nutrients. So the definition of mycorrhiza is, it is a symbiotic association between a green plant and a fungus. The plant makes organic molecules such as sugar by photosynthesis, and it will be supplied to the fungus, while the fungus is supplying plant with water and different nutrients like phosphorus. Mycorrhiza has got a very old history of discovery. The fossil records show that mycorrhiza can be as old as 460 million years. So there are different fossil species of mycorrhiza which has been recovered. And it was Robert Hartig in 1840 who first illustrated that mycorrhiza is present in the root of pine, and he actually recognized them as a structure but could not illustrate them. But it was Reisek in 1847 who described and recognized fungal cell associated with orchid root, and subsequently Frank in 1885 described fungus root structure and showed increase in growth of plant when there is mycorrhizal association present in the root. There are two broad types based on their location. They are the Ectomycorrhiza and Endomycorrhiza. Of course, Endomycorrhiza is very common, and this figure shows that the Endomycorrhiza, the hyphae is growing deep inside the cortex of the root, but in case of Ectomycorrhiza, the hyphae is not penetrating deep into the cortex. Instead, they produce a shield on the surface of the root, and this is really protecting the root from getting dried up, and at the same time it is immobilizing different nutrients and water for the plant root, which will be utilized for plant growth and development. Now, as I was telling you, it was Hartig who actually denoted in 1840 that this particular Ectomycorrhiza produce a unique barrier inside the cortical cells or on the surface of the cortex, and it was subsequently known as Hartig's net. And the symbiotic association, it has been shown that about 10% of plant families, mostly belonging to woody plant like birch, dipterocarp, eucalyptus, oak, pine, and different rose family plant or orchid, they have this mycorrhizal association, and the mycorrhizal fungi is belonging to Basidiomycota, Ascomycota, and Zygomycota. While walking through a forest, very commonly we find some mushroom sporocarp. But actually that mushroom sporocarp is not a unique structure, it is not a discrete structure. Like here in this photograph, the Leccinum aurantiacum, this is an ectomycorrhizal fungi which is growing in the forest bed, but the mycelia is embedded along with plant root. So it is also a part of this ectomycorrhizal association. So as I was telling, the Ectomycorrhiza contains a fungal sheath, and the parenchyma or the cortical region cells will be having the Hartig's net, and this Hartig's net will actually increase the cell contact, reducing the intercellular space, and thereby the nourishment procurement is better if there is ectomycorrhizal association. And if we consider the developmental stages of Ectomycorrhiza, it is quite fast. That is between 0 to 12 hours, which is called the pre-infection, the hypha comes in contact with the root. Between 12 to 24 hours, there will be symbiosis initiation, that is the fungus will be attaching to the epidermis, trying to find out whether the epidermis is friend or foe. Between 24 to 48 hours, there will be fungal colonization. So by that time, the fungi knows that this particular root is quite compatible, and naturally there will be layers of mantle or hyphal penetration into the epidermal cells. Between 48 to 96 hours, the symbiosis will be differentiated. There will be rapid build-up of mantle hyphae and the Hartignate will proliferate. And between 96 hours to 7 days, there will be full-fledged symbiosis function, that is the development of the mantle wall, and the epidermal cells will be distinctly covered by Hartignate growth. So it is quite obvious that within 7 days, a particular plant root can develop a unique mycorrhizal association with a fungal mycelia, provided that particular fungal mycelia is compatible with the plant root. Now sometimes this Ectomycorrhiza may actually be insectivorous, meaning this particular Laccaria bicolor, which is a mushroom, but it is having mycorrhizal association with plants. What they do is they trap insect like Springtail, and they take up the nitrogen from that insect body, they kill them, and this nitrogen is supplied to the plant. So it is one way by which the animal nitrogen is being transferred to plant by the help of this mycorrhizal insectivorous fungi like Laccaria. We come to the next group, we call it Arbutoid Mycorrhiza. But Arbutoid Mycorrhiza is nothing but, it is an intermediate stage between Ectomycorrhiza and Endomycorrhiza, so it is also called Ectendomycorrhiza. Why? Because there will be some sort of penetration, but this penetration will be not too deep, and at the same time the Hartignate will be there, but it is not that much as that of Ectomycorrhiza. Now we come to the most important and most widely found mycorrhiza, which is the Endomycorrhiza. Actually, the Endomycorrhiza, as the name signifies, grows deep inside the cortex. And there are different types of Endomycorrhiza. The first type is the Arbuscular mycorrhiza. What is arbuscles? Arbuscles are that the hyphae which is entering the plant root through root hair is going inside the cortex, and it is producing a network inside the cortex parenchyma cell. And this particular hyphal colony are called arbuscles, and basically sometimes this particular arbuscles will be formed intracellularly, but extracellularly they produce reproductive structure or asexual spores called chlamydospore, which is acting as a resting spore and allowing the fungi to survive during dry condition. The next group of Endomycorrhiza is Vesicular Arbuscular Mycorrhiza. What happens is, here there is penetration in the form of a structure called appressorium. So appressorium is a mycelial structure which is penetrating the cortex, and the intracellular hyphae is growing inside and they reach the cortex. And in the cortex, they produce both things. That is the arbuscles, which is a network of hyphae inside the cell, and also it is producing the vesicles in between cells. So that's why the name is Vesicular Arbuscular Mycorrhiza. And majority of this particular mycelia or the fungal member of Vesicular Arbuscular Mycorrhiza belong to the group called Glomeromycota. And this Glomeromycota, that is the reason why they are characterized as obligate symbionts, production of arbuscles in the plant root, and production of multinucleate spores with layered wall. And most importantly, they are lower fungi, so the hyphae or mycelia is aseptate. A very interesting compound is produced by this particular Glomeromycota, which is a key component of Endomycorrhiza or Vesicular Arbuscular Mycorrhiza. And this compound is called Glomalin. And Glomalin is basically a glue-like protein which is binding the soil particle, and thereby it is preventing soil erosion. There are different properties. What are these properties? They are produced by Vam fungi. They are beneficial to crop plants. They are found in all types of soil and they are extremely tough. They are not easily getting decayed and they are not getting dissolved in water. So these are the properties, and they have some very important function that include that they are storing carbon and nitrogen, they increase water retention, they improve the nutrient recycling or cycling, and they increase water infiltration, they improve root penetration, and most importantly, they stabilize the soil, they glue the soil around plant root, and thereby they are reducing wind or water erosion of the soil. So it is a very interesting association by which the soil fertility can be retained in and around the plant rhizosphere. We come to some specialized type of mycorrhiza, and one such mycorrhiza is Ericoid Mycorrhiza. And the name comes from the family Ericaceae, and the fungal member, they are mostly belonging to Ascomycetes or Ectomycorrhiza, and they include the Rhizoscyphus or Sebacina. And the hyphae goes in and produce a rib type of structure, and they digest polypeptide saprophytically, and they will pass the nitrogen into the plant. So this plant can survive in nitrogen deficient soil, and that is one reason why this Ericaceae family plants can grow in soil which contains low amount of nitrogen. We come to the another very special type of mycorrhiza which is associated with orchid root, and it is called Orchid Mycorrhiza. And in the orchid root, the aerial root or the clinging root, this mycorrhiza will get inside and they will try to procure nitrogen and phosphorus immobilization. So directly the plant will not get the nitrogen, but it is through this fungal intermediate that particular nourishment is actually derived by the orchid plant. A very interesting plant is Monotropa. Monotropa is actually belonging to a family of Monotropaceae, which is an insectivorous plant, and fungi like Arbustus and Pyrola, which are commonly providing mycorrhizal association to Monotropa, and so it is called Monotropa Mycorrhiza. And they are found in different types of association. That is, one of the plant is Monotropa, but of course beech, oak, spruce, pine, they are all around. And the Monotropa is actually getting the particular nourishment, and this nourishment of carbohydrate from the different conifer surrounding is being provided by the fungi like Pyrola. So what does it mean? It means the gymnosperm counterpart, which is a big tree, is providing photosynthesis and producing the sugar, and the sugar is acquired by the mycelial fungi, which is the mycorrhiza, and this mycorrhiza provides the carbohydrate need to Monotropa. And of course, as you know, Monotropa being an insectivorous plant, the nitrogen supply comes directly from the insect's body. And this type of mycorrhiza will also have the sheath, the hartignate, and the hyphal penetration of the epidermal cell, though this particular mycorrhiza is not having any type of parasitic influence on that particular host plant. So here what we see, there are the Ectomycorrhiza, Arbuscular Mycorrhiza, Ericoid Mycorrhiza, and the Orchid Mycorrhiza. The fungi involved for Ectomycorrhiza is Basidiomycota, Ascomycota, Zygomycota, wide. For Arbuscular Mycorrhiza, it is Glomeromycota. For Ericoid, it is Ascomycota, and for Orchid, it is Asco or Basidiomycota. The plant involved for Ectomycorrhiza is any woody plant. So there is no specific choice. Similarly, for Arbuscular Mycorrhiza, there may be also different woody plant, but the choice is little bit narrower. But for Ericoid and Orchid, it is specifically plants belonging to Ericaceae and Orchidaceae. And if we consider their morphology, hartignate and sheath are important constituent of Ectomycorrhiza, whereas for Arbuscular Mycorrhiza, there will be the arbuscles and the vesicles. For Ericoid, it will be intracellular hyphal mesh, and for Orchid, it will be unique hyphal coil, which is called pelotons inside the cortical cells. But for all these type, there will be adequate amount of phosphorus and nitrogen acquisition, and there will be water absorbed, though for Ericoid and Orchid, water acquisition is not always involved. But definitely they are providing some sort of protection to different pathogen. though again for Ericoid and orchid it is mainly from toxin. Now this is a unique figure which shows the different types of mycorrhizal growth. We see for Ectomycorrhiza it is distinct, the sheath is very big which adequate hurting net. For Endomycorrhiza there is no sheath, but this particular intracellular hyphae is growing deep inside, almost reaching the endodermis. For Ectendomycorrhiza the sheath is becoming thinner and there will be development of arbuscles within, and the arbuscle formation is wide. For Orchid Mycorrhiza there is no sheath, but there are definite digested old hyphal coil, and this hyphal coil sometimes is getting inside and getting digested, providing nourishment. For Ericoid it is also providing hyphal mesh in the internal cortical cells, and definitely by seeing the hyphae, by cutting section along the plant root, we should be clearly able to identify what type of mycorrhizal association is growing in this particular plant. Now let us talk about the importance of mycorrhiza. As I was telling you, the mycorrhizal fungi is an intermediate between soil and root of higher plant. So very often we see that the mycelia wall of the fungi will have different types of transporter or different types of receptor protein, which include the PI receptor, the amino acid transporter, the urea transporter, the nitrate transporter, the ammonia transporter, and of course the phosphate transporter. All these types of transporter basically will allow the absorption of phosphate, amino acid, urea, nitrate, ammonia, etc. And they pass on through this fungal cell and they get inside the plant root, which otherwise would not have been that much easy, because the intimate association between this nutrient and plant root is being possible with the fungal intermediate. And they give so much to the plant root, but in exchange they only expect some nourishment, which is in the form of fructose or sugar, which they procure directly from the plant host. So this is a very unique slide which represents the absorption of nutrients by the plant root with the help of mycorrhizal fungi. Of course, it has ecological importance. Ecological importance meaning it is basically improving the soil structure, increasing the beneficial microbial activity of the soil, and definitely it is preventing nutrient leaching and reduction of erosion and thereby water availability to the plant. So this figure is clearly showing that the mycelial hyphae which is underground is acquiring water and nutrition and directly supplying it to the plant and helping the plant to grow, though it is a big tree. As I was telling you, the mycelia is absorbing nourishment, and it is clear from this figure. The root here is only having limited growth, but when there is mycelia all around, basically the mycelial mesh will absorb different types of nourishment in the form of phosphate, nitrogen or water, and they make it available to the green plant. So definitely this is a unique slide which explains the absorption of different nutrients with the help of mycorrhizal association. There is a unique sustainable cycle, soil cycle called Inga alley. Inga is a type of plant which grows very fast, and as it grows, it is developing the mycelial mesh of Ectomycorrhiza, and when the plant is overgrowing, there will be definitely smaller weed plants growing below. So part of the Inga, because it is growing very fast, is pruned. At this particular nitrogen source of plant part, along with the alley, which is the other weeds, they will produce humus, and this humus will allow the fungi or the mycorrhizal fungi to grow faster, and this nourishment to the soil increases, and this is utilized by whom? It is utilized by crop plant. So what is done is a layer of tree and a layer of crop, which is strip cropping. Ultimately the productivity of this crop is helped by fungal mycelia present inside. So this is a unique sustainable cycle of Inga alley cropping. Now there may be immobilization of nutrients. It's important because the mycelia, if it is growing along with root, it will increase the surface area. And when the surface area increases, obviously there will be more absorption. It is natural. But we see in the left side of this particular slide, there are two important phenomena. One is the leached nutrient loss, another one is the gaseous nitrogen loss. Both of these are becoming thinner, that is, they are reduced with the help of ecto or endomycorrhiza growing along plant root, by which we could see there have been some immobilization of nutrient inside the soil rhizosphere, and there have been some nitrogen fixation which is making the soil more fertile and helping the plant grow faster. A very interesting slide. What we see is a mycorrhiza which is Arbuscular mycorrhiza. They are giving some sort of defense against some herbivores or herbivorous insect. And it is quite obvious whenever there is some herbivorous insect attack, there will be production of some volatile compounds. But when the mycelial growth is there with the mycorrhiza, they will switch on this defense system, and as because this defense system is getting switched on, it will produce different types of terpenoid compound which are very commonly called VOC or volatile organic compound, and these volatile organic compound act as signal. They provide a unique environment, and this plant which is surviving in the vicinity, though they do not have any mycorrhizal association, but they are benefited from this volatile compound effect and they are less damaged by insect. So it is a very unique association by which the mycelial fungi growing in the soil is providing some VOC in the environment which will protect other plant from insect attack, and this type of defense is called systemic acquired resistance, and it is brought about by the switching on of jasmonic acid or salicylic acid. As I was telling, they are also providing water storage, and thereby this mycorrhiza may mediate drought tolerance, and this drought tolerance is also helped by this increased SA or JA pathways. And of course, retention of phosphate, zinc and ammonia along with water will help the plant root to grow faster, as it is seen in this case of Arbuscular mycorrhizal colonization. The root density is high in comparison to that root where there is no association. Mycorrhiza can actually bring about salt tolerance, like in photosynthetic protection, the magnesium level may be increased. The magnesium procurement is more, so there is more photosynthesis. Of course, these are all in presence of excess of potassium or sodium salt in the soil. There will be more ROS production, reactive oxygen species. But here, because of this mycorrhizal association, there will be more enzymes like superoxide dismutase or antioxidants which will reduce the stress. There will be low osmolytic accumulation normally, but in case of mycorrhizal association, there will be high amount of osmolytes like proline, sugar and glycine which help the plant to grow. There will be more water homeostasis, meaning more water retention and supply to higher plant. And for ion homeostasis, there will be reduced potassium sodium or magnesium sodium ratio, but there will be more potassium sodium and magnesium sodium ratio, which will indicate that these particular roots are more healthy and they can procure more nourishment for the plant growth. This is something very interesting. The soil can be reclaimed with mycorrhiza. Whenever there is mycorrhizal association, that will bring about soil aggregation, and there will be metal trapped by the hyphae, and these metals may include nourishment, and the seedlings will grow faster, and there will be more access to nourishment, and the plant will be bigger in no time. And thereby, by using this principle, a coal mine site which is a degraded soil can be converted to dense forest, as it is shown here in this particular slide. There may be mycorrhizal association in some gymnosperms. Like in Pinus, there will be the growth of Pysolithus, which is a particular arbuscular mycorrhiza. There may be the growth of Suillus, which is an edible mushroom. So what is there? If that particular condition or soil, everything is given for the plant, but the Pinus plant won't grow because this particular mycorrhizal fungi is not there. And sometimes this fungi may produce edible mushroom which is nutritionally beneficial for other organisms. So what we have discussed in this particular lecture, we have discussed the different types of mycorrhiza, we have discussed their structure, function, and of course their importance in the development of forest or in the retention of fertility in the soil. Thank you.